What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler and today I'm reviewing the Undercover Nike React Element 87. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't yet. Also make sure to give me a follow on Instagram and on Twitter at @RealSethFowler. But with all that out of the way, let's get into it. This summer, Nike released what some people have been calling the best sneaker of the year. I'm not totally sure if I agree with that yet because we still have a lot of the year left to go and there are a lot of really great sneakers dropping, but it's definitely in the top 5. That sneaker, of course, is the Nike React Element 87. But interestingly enough, the first time we saw this sneaker wasn't with the original release colorway, it was with the Undercover collaboration. If you aren't familiar with Undercover, it's a Japanese fashion brand run by Jun Takahashi. This also isn't the first time Takahashi has collaborated with Nike, but it's by far the most popular. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the sneaker itself. Here it is, the Undercover Nike React Element 87. This green, red, and blue Undercover Nike React Element 87 released simultaneously with 3 other colorways in the United States. All of the colorways that dropped, except for maybe one, were extremely bright and extremely out there. This colorway definitely not being the exception with its crazy contrasty upper and this sort of dark sea blue outsole. Unlike many of the brand collaborations that Nike has done recently, like those with Off-White and those with PSNY, this particular collaboration keeps the silhouette pretty much exactly the same to the regular version. A majority of the upper of the sneaker uses that same clear sort of plastic mesh that's used on the regular React Element 87s. This time around, the mesh comes in this very light sort of bright green, which I've got to say, while filming the B-roll, it was a nightmare because the camera just couldn't pick up the right tones. Honestly, until I edit this video, I don't even know if it's gonna look right, and it probably won't even look right once it's color graded, so I don't know. But just imagine like a light Grinch green. Because the upper is clear, you can see some of the structural elements that make up the upper of the sneaker, like this white sort of thin felt on the inside of the shoe. Obviously, there isn't that much structure to the upper of the shoe because as soon as you sort of squeeze it down, it completely collapses, but there is some structural elements there nonetheless. Running down the center of the toe, you've got this bright red stitching accent. On the medial side of the toe, you've got this tiny printed white Nike swoosh. Continuing up on the sneaker, you've got this small gray leather accent at the base of the tongue. This leather accent houses some of the red lace loops with 3M details on the center. Just above that leather accent, we've got this red thin felt overlay. This overlay also houses some of the lace loops as well. Underneath that, you've got this thin black semi-translucent piece of fuse overlay for a little bit of added durability. Running through the lace loops, you've got these flat red laces with these sort of gray dots running down the center. Underneath the laces, you've got more of that thin green plastic mesh making up the tongue. At the top of the asymmetrical tongue, as we've come to expect from this silhouette, you've got the Nike React branding, and then of course your Nike check pinwheel. Inside the sneaker, the only way to describe the padding is minimal. There is very little, if any, padding to speak of on the upper of the sneaker. That's not a bad thing, I guess, if you get the right size. There's nothing really that digs into your foot, so it's not uncomfortable, but I kind of would have appreciated a little bit more padding around the ankle. Inside the sneaker, the Undercover collaboration differs a little bit from the regular version of the sneaker because instead of your cork insole, you've just got a standard white insole with a bright red Nike swoosh. As for fit, the Undercover Nike React Element 87 does seem to fit relatively true to size. I have 2 pairs of this shoe, both in my true size, this Undercover collaboration and then the regular sale version of the sneaker. One thing I will say is that the shoe does seem to run a little bit narrow and a little bit long, so if you are able to go down half a size, that might not be a bad way to go. That is if you have narrow feet. If you have wide feet, you probably should just go true to size because like I said, it is a narrow sneaker. But for me, the right choice probably would have been going down half a size. Continuing back on the sneaker, you get to the oversized printed Nike swoosh that sort of spills over onto the midsole. And just above that, you get to sort of the defining detail of this collaboration, the printed Undercover Jun Takahashi text on the midfoot. Continuing back on the shoe, the underlay changes to a black, which sort of gives the whole heel area of the sneaker sort of a seaweed look. That's probably my least favorite part of the shoe. It just feels a little bit off to me, but it is what it is. You've also got the signature Nike React Element 87 heel detail with this fuse overlay with stitching running down the center. Also in red to match the stitching detail on the toe. Just below that, you've got this very short blue TPU heel counter with the words Nike React embossed out of it. And finally, moving to the back of the sneaker, you've got this white pull tab with a 3M detail, and then this red accent with a downward facing Nike swoosh. Continuing down the shoe, you get to the signature textured Nike React midsole. The indentations on the midsole almost look like forward facing arrows, which kind of gives the shoe some forward movement. The midsole also comes in sort of this pale blue-gray color, which is definitely interesting. It's not really a color you see used on shoes much, and it's definitely not my favorite, but it's not bad. I guess it sort of tones down the rest of the sneaker because the upper is just super bright and super out there. Finally, moving to the bottom of the sneaker, you've got these same rubber sort of octopus-looking traction pods. They also come in sort of a dark gray and spill up onto the side of the midsole. I'm not in love with the color scheme of the outsole, but I definitely don't hate it, and I've got to say the Nike React midsole cushion is unbelievably comfortable. Now moving on to the part of the review that I'm dubbing my honest thoughts or overview section. First things first, I definitely don't like this shoe as much as the original version. In my personal opinion, I don't like this colorway either. It's just not my thing. Out of the 4 colorways that drop, that sort of olive green brown colorway is probably the only colorway that I'd wear on a regular basis. In all honesty, the only reason I picked up this colorway is because in London, only 2 of the colorways had dropped. Both of them were kind of like, and I needed to get a review out. As for the actual comfort of the shoe, of course it still feels great. It's the same exact shoe that released a couple months ago without the Undercover branding. I still think it's better than a lot of the other sneakers on the market, and I probably wouldn't mind paying 180 bucks or retail for this shoe. But if I was actually presented with the opportunity to buy a colorway that I actually liked, like that sort of olive brown colorway, I wouldn't mind spending the money. Is this collab sneaker of the year? In my opinion, no. I think the original sale colorway is a much stronger contender because it stands on its own 2 feet. It doesn't need to be a collaboration to stand out, and I just think it's a better looking shoe overall. But that about wraps up the video for today. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Undercover Nike React Element 87 and which of the 4 colorways is your favorite, so make sure to leave your comments in the comment section down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe down below if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.